It looks like things are really kicking off in this episode of The Bad Batch, so let's get straight into the breakdown. We begin with Admiral Rampart in search for Hera following her escape in the last episode, and as the Empire searches the entire planet, they also end up searching the Syndulla family house. The Syndulla's family house will be familiar to Rebels fans in particular, as it first appeared in the series, with Hera returning to her ancestral home after many years. The house would eventually be taken over by Thrawn in hopes of catching the crew of the Ghost, but the house is eventually destroyed in an explosion to help the crew of the Ghost make their escape, much to Cham Syndulla's horror. Next, Hera sends a message to Omega, with Chopper most likely recording the message. The hologram that the Bad Batch receive is very much reminiscent and a callback to Princess Leia's own call for help back in A New Hope. Both messages are pleas for help, with Obi Wan being Princess Leia's only hope and the Bad Batch being Hera's only hope. Interestingly enough, the episode does follow some very similar story beats to A New Hope, which may be suggestive of the bigger things to come. We also get confirmation that Senator Onfrey Tar is alive, at least according to Admiral Rampart. While it's pretty incredulous that Senator Ta is still alive, it at the very least doesn't create any plot holes. As I mentioned in my previous video, had Senator Ta died, it would have created a massive plot hole or retcon for the events that take place in the book The Lords of the Sith, but seeing as Senator Ta is still alive, all is right once again. As Rampart is giving his speech, Hunter kills a probe droid. The model of the probe droid is the DRK-1 Dark Eye probe droid, very much similar to the one we see on Hoth, and has made plenty of appearances throughout Star Wars. At last, we finally get Howzer's defection. We all knew that he would defect eventually. In the previous episode and in this episode, Howzer has consistently and constantly questioned the actions of Admiral Rampart and seems unsure of where he stands with the Empire. So, towards the end of the episode, Howzer finally makes up his mind and decides that his true loyalty lies with the people of the Republic and not the Empire. During his defection, he actually, surprisingly, manages to convince several other clones to join him, and while they were all eventually arrested, it does raise some really interesting questions. Previously, we all knew that the clones were under the complete control of the inhibitor chips, ensuring total obedience but at the cost of their own personality and creativity. But it seems as though these effects are wearing off, at least for some of the clones. Now, it could be possible that the inhibitor chip in the few clones that rebelled were defective, but even more likely is that the effect of the inhibitor chip has begun to weaken. And this would make a lot of sense. The primary function of the inhibitor chip once activated was to prevent clones from disobeying orders, but we don't actually know how long they will last. And this is a very exciting revelation because this means that a clone rebellion is most likely going to happen. A while back, I predicted that the Bad Batch was going to be about, or at the very least, feature some sort of a clone rebellion, and if the inhibitor chips are slowly losing their power, it seems more than likely that more clones will defect once they realize what the Empire is doing. And interestingly enough, the Bad Batch has consistently progressed towards the side of the rebellion. In the beginning of the series, the Bad Batch were more concerned about their own situation and only ran a few missions in order to gain credits. But over the course of the series, we see that the Bad Batch increasingly take risks to help others in need and not necessarily out of self-interest. While it did take some convincing in this episode from Omega and Hera, the Bad Batch did essentially rescue a rebel leader and at the end of the episode refused to take their credits. While you could of course say that this was just the good-hearted nature of Hunter, I think there's a lot more to this. It's pretty clear that Omega has been the source of outreach for the Bad Batch, in some ways pushing them to do more for others. So it does seem like the natural progression for the Bad Batch to take some risk and to defy the Empire and help with a rebellion. And this would lend in greatly to the similarities between A New Hope and this episode, or at the very least, similarities with the first half of A New Hope. Both stories feature a cry for help and a younger, naive character convincing the more jaded and cynical team members to help others. It also includes a prison rescue and a promise that the Empire will be hot on their heels following their escape. And while I might be reading a little too much into this, with only 4 more episodes to go, The Bad Batch really needs a grand finale. And what better way to end the story with a bang than with a full clone rebellion? That would also explain why the Empire fully embraced the transition to Stormtroopers despite their shortcomings. So what if Episode 12 of The Bad Batch is the A New Hope for The Bad Batch? What if this is the beginning of The Bad Batch's adventure as rebels, just like A New Hope was the beginning for Luke and Han's journey as galactic rebels? At the end of the episode, we get a short and sweet moment between Hera and Omega, both of them essentially promising that they will meet again sometime in the future. And knowing Filoni, it just might be a very, very distinct possibility. That's all for today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed this breakdown. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.